So we've got candidate resignations, questions about campaign rallies, and closing pitches from leaders on a day when the inflation rate for last month hit 4.1%, the highest level in almost 2 decades, underscoring affordability issues for Canadians. Let's bring in 3 candidates to discuss the latest campaign developments. Joyce Murray is the Liberal candidate for re-election in the riding of Vancouver Quadra. She's currently the Minister of Digital Government. Dan Albas is the Conservative candidate for re-election in the BC riding of Central Okanagan-Similkameen-Nicola. And Shailene Panylo is the NDP candidate in the riding of Oshawa. It's good to see you all. Thanks for being here. Joyce Murray, let me start with you. Justin Trudeau is coming under fire today for a big campaign rally in Brampton where the capacity rules were followed. Around 400 people gathered indoors when the rules in that region are 500 maximum. But everyone was supposed to keep 2 meters apart, and the images show people crowded against the stage to hear Jean Chrétien and Justin Trudeau. How does this kind of a campaign event maybe hurt Justin Trudeau's messaging on the need to follow all the pandemic rules?
Well, firstly, we have and continue to follow all the public health guidelines wherever our events are held across the country, Peter. The room capacity, which was already reduced from its normal capacity due to COVID, was respected, and guests were asked to follow all public health guidelines. And Mr. Trudeau actually spoke to this question during his press conference today in Halifax.
Mr. Albas, the Conservatives are facing criticism of their own over pandemic management, vaccinations, and some candidates who've made anti-vaccine comments, candidates who refuse to get vaccinated. Who has the high road here on pandemic management?
Well, I would certainly say leaders need to be leaders. They need to be consistent with their words. Mr. O'Toole has been running a positive campaign, and he's been respecting, clearly, social distancing, wearing masks where appropriate, and encouraging Canadians to get vaccinated as the way to get out of this pandemic. It's really Mr. Trudeau that has to answer these questions about why he says one thing, why he does another. And really, again, last night, the picture showed it all.
All right, Shailene Panylo, Jagmeet Singh also faced some questions about his own rally in an airplane hangar in Windsor. The campaign's almost over now, but are leaders and parties sending the wrong message with these kinds of gatherings during the campaign?
I think so long as folks are, certainly Jagmeet has been good in ensuring that all of their rallies and gatherings have been taking place outdoors or in open air spaces. But certainly I think it begs the question of the timing of this election and the fact that it was called as we were staring down the barrel of a 4th wave, and how folks are still concerned, and rightfully so. And so I do think we turn it back to why we're in an election at this time in the first place.
Okay, let me move to another subject. Mr. Albas, there was a lot of focus on Erin O'Toole's pitch to moderate voters that the Conservative Party he leads is something new. It's not your father or your grandfather's Conservative Party, that the party's has let down voters in the past. He acknowledged that today. Why does he feel he needs to say that to Canadians now?
Well, I think that his style of leadership is where you admit mistakes and you admit where maybe you've gone wrong. And that humility is, I think, is what people want to hear. When I knock on people's doors, they say, tell us what your plan for the country is. Tell us about what your values are. And in some cases, there are some voters that are leaning towards voting for us, but want to hear that we're not the party, perhaps, that they have a stereotype of. Other campaigns have been throwing a lot of mud and creating a lot of misinformation. So Mr. O'Toole has put out his platform very early on.
I don't think that, hang on, Mr. Albas, I don't think Mr. O'Toole was talking about stereotypes as much today as acknowledging that Canadians have been let down in the past by the Conservative Party. What does he mean?
Well, he said it this morning at a press conference. We didn't, in the last 2 elections, present a solid climate change plan. That's clearly different here today. And look, we have candidates from all sorts of backgrounds so that people can see that this is a Conservative Party that draws on the strengths of this great country. We have people from all different types of backgrounds, ethnicity, religious views, as well as people from the LGBT community that are running as Conservatives and are here to serve. That's the message Mr. O'Toole wants to send.
All right. Joyce Murray, Liberals in the NDP can fight it out over progressive voters. It looks like Erin O'Toole is now trying to steal away some of those disaffected Liberals with a move to the middle. What do you say to that?
Well, firstly, I would say I don't know what Erin O'Toole stands for, because it seems like it's a message of the day depending on what he thinks will be more popular. So, for example, page 90 in his election platform says that he will scrap the gun control measures on assault-style rifles. Then he came out saying that he wouldn't do that, and then it turns out he's going to consult on it. So what actually is he going to do? We think he's made commitments to the gun lobby. That's part of how we got elected, and that's not the only one that he's flip-flopped on.
All right, so you're suggesting here, despite what he's saying, you think it is the same old Conservative Party. That's the point you're trying to make.
Absolutely, and that's who got him elected as leader. I mean, the pro-life lobby, the gun lobby, etc., the lobby against climate change. So I think he's beholden to a lot of Conservative members.
Okay, let me
must be wondering what he stands for right now.
Let me move along. Shailene Panylo, once again, the NDP is getting squeezed by the Liberals as they tell progressive voters only Liberals can stop Erin O'Toole from forming government. Even Union leader Jerry Dias is telling his members to vote strategically for Liberals. You're in the heart of Union country there in Oshawa. What do you say to progressive voters who may now be reconsidering their NDP support?
For sure. Well, I think I'm very lucky to be in Oshawa, where the NDP always come a close second, if not challenge for first here in Oshawa. And so we don't have to fit that rhetoric of strategic voting and, the myth that Liberals often put out, because we are a viable option here. And something that I would say is that it is getting out of hand and ridiculous to be watching, two grown men bicker like children when the rest of the world is trying to find solutions for real problems that we're dealing with. And that is what we're continuing to see. So in Oshawa, it's a very different conversation because people want change and they need change desperately, and they don't care to entertain the foolish arguments of men who don't seem to quite understand what it's like to be at the bottom or to be marginalized or overlooked. So as much as it's nice, that the Conservatives will, in this case, tokenize racialized candidates or people with different intersections. In my riding, there is a Conservative candidate whose alleged volunteer team and campaign staff have been telling voters at the advanced polls this past weekend not to elect a colored woman because they need to protect their values. So that is the reality of what it's like.
That's a pretty serious allegation.
Where did you hear this?
So this came to our attention this weekend by one volunteer and was confirmed again by a community member this morning. And so it has been escalated to Elections Canada, the head office, by the party. Okay,
so the NDP is now investigating comments. Who you say made these comments?
An alleged volunteer or campaign staff member of the Conservative candidates team here in Oshawa.
All right, Mr. Albas, do you know anything about this?
So that is a very serious allegation. I do hope this NDP candidate has reached across to our candidate there to share that information to see if that is the case. But Erin O'Toole is very clear. It does not matter your ethnicity, your religion, whether you pray to someone or not. You will have a place in Canada's Conservative Party. So this is very alarming, but I do hope that these kinds of serious allegations are being discussed, because anyone who would associate themselves with any kind of comments such as that would see the door under my campaign or under our candidate, Colin Carey's, in Oshawa.
Joyce Murray, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I actually would like to talk about the fact that the Liberal government did a very credible job in supporting Canada and Canadians through this global pandemic, a once-in-a-generation, I hope, crisis, getting people vaccinated earlier than most other countries. And there are some big pieces, some big policies to actually rebuild our economy as a green economy, a fairer economy, and finish the fight against COVID. I think that that's what this discussion needs to touch into. What better time for providing Canadians with a mandate to decide how to go forward in this generational crisis than now? And we have a very solid plan to support mandatory vaccination efforts of the provinces, tackle climate change in a way that the experts are saying is the best plan of any of the parties, and to have $10 a day childcare, which is a huge economic driver and equality opportunity for women who would like to work but haven't been able to find or afford childcare.
We'll have to leave our conversation at that. Thank you all for your time tonight, and as I say to all candidates, good luck, and appreciate you taking time to speak about some of the issues tonight. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.